But it very quickly turned into what Mr. Shakespeare wrote as full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And finally, at long last, after many, many taxes, a most unfortunate series of them, called the Coercive Acts by the good people of Parliament. We in the colonies called them the Intolerable Acts because, well, I believe you can understand why. So, we did eventually come to an agreement that all 13 colonies should send representatives to Philadelphia, the most central city of the colonies at the time, so that we might discuss a response. And I, with 3 of my colleagues, traveled from Boston to Philadelphia, over 3 weeks of travel. Not because only of the distance, but because at every other town we seemed to stop and have some lavish dinner to celebrate the fact that we had a Congress, much less that we had not done anything. Rather, we could have taken that time and actually begun working faster. However, I will confess that Philadelphia was a city to behold. It was a marvel of straight streets and organization that Boston could never boast. They had a city of wonders there. There were wonderful things. There was a ferry, a boat that could take passengers across the Delaware River, and the paddle wheel was operated by 2 horses walking along a moving treadle. It's quite fascinating. They also had the flying machine, which I know sounds preposterous, but it was a coach that could travel from New York to Philadelphia in only 2 days. Quite expedient. But what was most impressive, and one of the reasons that Philadelphia was chosen, was because of the abundance of churches there, the differing faiths that could be accommodated of our young apprentice congressmen. I myself was a church-going animal, and I attended every service that I could. But we began in the autumn of 1774 with great hope. But it very quickly turned into what Mr. Shakespeare wrote as full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The Continental Congress began with calls for unity and harmony, and then proceeded to devolve into bickering and arguing over voting and procedures and should we have a chaplain or not. We began to craft a declaration of our rights. We began to write and accept resolutions from Suffolk County, Massachusetts, to declare that we had the right to defend ourselves. And then Joseph Galloway pleaded for a humble petition to our king to redress our simple grievances, and suggested a new form of government for the colonies, a Continental Council, which would create laws, but everything had to be passed through to Parliament for approval. Or in other words, we would be no better off than we were before. We also suggested a council to stop trade with England, to stop an exporting and importing of goods. And every colony agreed, provided it did not apply to them. But by the midst of October, we had achieved some good. There were, of course, a measure of non-importation, non-consumption, and non-exportation to Britain, a petition to the king, as well as an address to the people of England, as well as a declaration of our rights, and one to the people of America as well. There was a proposal for a militia in law and encouragement of militia in each colony. A proposal for raising £500,000 sterling and 20,000 men, and sending home agents from Congress to negotiate and propose American legislature. You have heard the word propose, suggest, recommend, encourage, because that is all we could do. We, the Congress, were not an official authority. We could not simply tell the colonies to boycott and that they would automatically do it. It was a long journey for that. But we could only suggest